So you've talked about the America First economy and what Trump is doing, trying to get America back booming better than ever. What is your role in that with what you do as CEO of the American Beverage Association?
So my role is to go out and talk about the great things our industry is doing as individual companies and collectively, and make sure people understand more about this industry. I think a lot of times people think that we're, three big companies, Coke, Pepsi, Dr. Pepper, when actually that's true. We have the corporate franchise companies, but we're really a system of family-owned bottlers across the country. And these are generationally owned companies passed down from generation to generation. And they're really in the roots, and that's a big part of the economy. It's a big part of what the president's been talking about and the type of jobs he wants to see here in America, which are those companies that make their products here in America with American workers and in American hometowns. And, that's who we are. And so it's out there talking about that, talking about how we're continuing to build and grow. And not just overall jobs, but it's as much the type of jobs that our companies provide. They provide these good paying jobs, middle class jobs that you can, you don't have to have a college education. If you do, that's great, but you don't have to have one, but you can still, raise a family, put down roots, buy a home. And that's why these folks stay in those jobs for as long as they do. And I think that's the type of job the president's been talking about as well, is the quality of the job. And that's what our companies provide.
So there's been a lot of conversation about sugary sodas and make America healthy again. From your perspective, where is the line between federal regulation and voluntary efforts on the part of these companies? Where do you think the government should step in? Where do you think you should leave it to industry?
I think that's where the challenge is, right? Is how do you strike the right balance? We think if you look at the broader consumer products industry, we think our industry is actually the model. We provide so many choices, innovative choices. Of course, we have the sodas. And look, those are refreshments. They're refreshment beverages. We don't make them out to be anything more than they are. They're certainly not anything less. But we make so much more than just soda. We make all the waters, the sparkling, the flavored waters, and the still waters. We make the energy drinks that have no sugar. We make the sports drinks, including with no sugar. We make there's even new innovation in like these prebiotic drinks that are coming out. And now our companies are coming out with drinks with more protein in them because that's what the consumer's looking for. So more functional benefits to them as well. So I think that's really where we want to educate people on too, that we have all these new choices and options. And just as you said, give Americans and the consumer choice. Ratchet that up with even greater transparency that our industry is providing with a new website called Good to Know. That'll tell you everything about our ingredients. And now you've given them choice, you've given them greater information, they're better equipped to decide what they want for themselves.
So then it does become kind of a choice of, do you blame a company or is there personal choice in what you're taking in every day? And there's that balance to strike too of, can the government come in and make you be healthier? Or once you have the information, is it up to you to do what you need to be doing for yourself?
That's right. We want to empower the consumer. And look, Secretary Kennedy is the Secretary of Health. He's pushing everybody. That's his job. I used to work for a health secretary. That's the role. So the push is great. The push we've gotten from our consumers is great. We're out there responding. But I think fundamentally, what Americans have always wanted is the freedom to decide for themselves. And I think there's no industry out there that's providing the type of choice that we are and the type of transparency that we are, so that consumer truly can decide what's best for them.
And it seems what's beautiful about America is we have this free market. So when there is a desire, companies can rise up and meet that desire.
We think we're the model of free marketplace solutions. And that is the essence of conservatism. And I think just what Americans want, the average American wants. They don't want government in their lives and intruding in their lives. I think they want the ability to decide for themselves. They want, if leaders can help push that in the marketplace, that can always be helpful. but the marketplace will respond. At least the smart folks in the marketplace will respond.
Now, what do you think about the SNAP benefits programs in states that are going on right now, where states are able to opt in and say, we don't want this going to these types of beverages anymore? What do you think about that?
Well, first of all, it is always fair to ask how taxpayer money is spent. So if lawmakers and governors want to ask the question, should taxpayer money be spent on soft drinks? Fair question. We would just say what they need to be careful on is making sure they're consistent on that standard. If there's a concern about sugar and taxpayer money in SNAP going to pay for sugar products, well, don't just stop at soda. You know, there's a whole array. Deal with sugar and not single out one set of products versus another set of products, especially when we're the industry that's been driving down the calories we're putting in the marketplace. So because of that innovation, the amount of calories in the marketplace, which is sugar in our case, is down 45%. So we're actually out there making the difference. And so I think a more holistic approach would probably be more appropriate than singling out winners and losers.
Now, MAHA has been a big thing, and it seems like it's gaining a following even among people that aren't hardcore conservative, but they care about what's going in their body. And you're seeing these policies go forward, and you're getting to be a part of that and see it in the marketplace, the protein drinks, these companies rising up with these products. What do you think happens when and if we had an administration that did not prioritize these things again? Where does industry go from there?
Well, that's where I think folks need to be careful about, just not replacing left of center government intervention with right of center government intervention, because that can swing back real quickly. The balance is just that. It's providing the balance, providing the choice. We've had to deal with the left, quite frankly, for the last 15 years. Some on the left who, and I'm saying some, I don't want to paint too broad a brush, but there's some on the left that have wanted to tax our products. And we've been in, the tax wars for 15 years and having to fight those, and that's, we ended up winning on that because consumers don't want government trying to not just tell them what to do, but, tax them to force behavior change.
So the businesses that you work with, what are they telling you about how they're doing in Trump's economy compared to Biden's economy?
I think they're doing well. They're doing well. You have, just in what we were able to count and find, and I know we're missing some, 25 new plants have been built this year by our industry across the country, with a major, billion-dollar impact, economic impact. So they're growing. We're still dealing with some of the challenges in the past too, like a lot of the consumer goods companies out there. But our guys have their focus and their nose to the business at hand, and so they're working on growing, building, providing those good jobs, and delivering on it.
As Trump in his address last night said, you're going to see the fruits of my policies this coming year, this next year. Do you think these companies believe that and they're waiting to see it and they're excited about it?
Yes, I think that's why they have the confidence to build these new plants. They do see what's coming. Look, the president was upfront with the tariffs, and not going to say that we don't have tariff pressures, we do. But the president also said, hey, give it time to work, and he told America that. I think our folks have heard that, and they're keeping their eye on the ball. They're focused on building their businesses and having healthy businesses, and we're always optimistic about the future. But I think with this current economy, they're really seeing a bright future.